If it's one thing we runners hate, it's injuries. And sadly, most of us have to deal with them. Studies have shown that over 40% of runners get injured at least once every single year. But the fact is that most injuries could be prevented. I'm Göran, a runner, coach and physiotherapist. And in this video, I will be talking about the 5 most common running injuries, how you can prevent them, and by the end of the video, I will talk about the 2 most important general things all runners should focus on to avoid most running injuries. Let's start with the number 1 running injury, and it's called runner's knee for a reason. It is also called patellofemoral pain syndrome, and the symptoms are dull pain around the kneecap, or patella as we call it, especially when squatting or going downstairs. I have struggled with this myself, and as a matter of fact, I have had all of the 5 most common running injuries that we will talk about today. Which is, it's not a good thing. It's not like Pokemon, you gotta catch them all. This simply means that I have done a bit too many mistakes in my running journey. But the good thing is that I have learned a lot from having to deal with a lot of different injuries as a runner myself. So hopefully you don't have to deal with all of these injuries. So the causes of these injuries, some studies show could be weak hip and glute muscles. And another study showed that overstriding, meaning that you land too far in front of your center of mass in each step, increases the stress on the patella. So here are some key things that can be done to prevent this injury. Studies have shown that doing strength training that focuses mainly on the quadriceps muscles and the glutes have helped with this issue. So for example, doing single leg squats, working both the glutes and the quadriceps muscles. And you could also do some side planks to really activate those hip abductors. And if you really want to put some pressure on them, you could start raising your upper leg and still try to keep the hip straight. And if you tend to land with your foot way in front of your center of mass, the easiest way to fix this is to slightly increase your cadence, meaning how many steps you take per minute. If you have a higher cadence, you will naturally land more under your body with a more bent knee, causing less stress on your knee. Before we move on to the next really common running injury that I must say is the most painful one I've had to experience, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, that is Prongo. And to be honest, I have been pretty skeptical to this kind of red light therapy. I mean, could a little device like this one really help with running injuries? But as a coach and physiotherapist, I go where the evidence points me. And I actually thought I was going to find out that using a device like this is pretty pointless. But what I found in the recent studies done on this was pretty amazing. Because there are a lot of recent studies showing great effect of using red light therapy to reduce pain, inflammation and improve recovery. And in simple terms, this works because the red light going through here penetrates the skin and basically stimulates cellular energy production. So I started using this on places where I felt small niggles, and I have experienced just like the evidence point towards that it helps manage the pain and helps speed up the recovery process. This device here that I've been using lately is called the Flux Go. It has a really smart modular design, and it's really compact with these 3 different units, so you can basically use the different parts in a lot of different ways to use it on all of your body. So if you want to try this one and have it as one tool in your tool belt to fight those running injuries, there's a link in the description to check it out. Thanks Prongo for supporting my channel and helping us runners have less pain. Next up on our running injury enemy hit list that we're trying to avoid is the iliotibial band syndrome. If you felt a sharp pain on the outside of your knee mid-run, this is probably the injury you've been struggling with. The iliotibial band is a thick band of fibrous tissues that runs from the outside of your hip down here and goes to the outside of your knee and passes the knee joint. And if it becomes tight here at the knee, it can put pressure and rub against a small bursa, and it can become extremely painful. So some causes to this is of course repetitive knee flexion, which we all do when we run. We bend our knee back and forth a lot. And also another risk factor is weak hip abductors, which also here has been shown to be linked to this problem. Since if we don't have strong enough muscles here, that will cause us every time our foot hits the ground while running to fall in like that with our knee. And this will cause the iliotibial band to have a longer travel down to the knee and can put more tension down here. So if we have strong hip abductors, then we can keep our knee steady and not have to fall in like that. So some specific prevention tips for this injury is once again strengthening those hip muscles, and another way to do it is these kind of hip raises, lowering the hip like that and then coming up there, really activating the muscles. Also working with some dynamic mobility like these leg swings here to avoid the IT band from getting too stiff can be a perfect movement to include in your warm-up routine. If you ever experience that stabbing pain under your heel, that's probably plantar fasciitis, and it can sadly take a long time to get rid of. So we have this thick band of tissue under our heel called the plantar fascia, and where it connects to the heel bone it can become really painful. So what are the causes of this? One study showed it could be linked to having tight calves or weak foot arches. And of course, like with all running injuries, sudden increases in training stimuli. If you have really tight calves and this becomes an issue, doing some dynamic calf mobility like this exercise here could be a good prevention tip. Also to strengthen the tendon under the foot with different one-legged balance exercises like this, or you could just if you don't have something like this, you can just take a pillow or anything and just stand on one leg to try to challenge your balance, and close your eyes to make it even more hard to really make those tendons and muscles under the foot work hard to keep the balance. What often is called shin splints is this aching along your tibia. It's often a warning sign of overuse, and a more professional term for this is medial tibial stress syndrome. Some causes to this medial tibial stress syndrome that has been shown is simply running too much too soon, especially on hard surfaces. So basically staying away from the forest and just hitting that pavement. But also in general increasing your running too much, as we will talk more about later. So some prevention tips for this is strengthening the calf muscles to help you dampen the impact in your stride. And this you can do with simple calf raises, one-legged if you want them to be a bit more hard. And another prevention tips is to vary the load with mixing the surface you run on. For example, not as mentioned, not only running on pavement, mixing up with grass, trails, and even running on the treadmill to get different kinds of loads. Last but not least, because this injury can be a really big problem if you get it yourself. And this is Achilles Tendinopathy, or basically pain in your Achilles tendon. And it's also right now actually impacting the world's best runner, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who has had to delay his season opening because of some Achilles problem. And I myself have struggled with this a lot as well, and it can take some time, and it's an injury you really should take seriously so you don't get chronic issues from it. Some causes to this problematic injury can be rapid increases in your speed work or hill repeats. That has been linked to this issue in some studies, and also basically, as with all the injuries, and we will talk more about very soon, that running too much too soon in general before your tendon in this case is strong enough to deal with it is of course also here a big risk factor. So some prevention tips for this is once again doing a variant of calf raises and a variant that is called heavy slow resistance. Basically meaning that you put some weight to make it a bit more heavy, and then you do the exercise in a really slow and controlled manner, going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 3 seconds on your way up and 3 seconds on your way down, really breaking that force. And this kind of heavy, slow resistance calf raises has been shown really effective in rehabbing pain when you start to have problems with your Achilles tendon. But it could also be a great prehab exercise to prevent you from getting this injury and build a really strong and healthy tendon. Okay, so those are the 5 most common running injuries and some specific prevention tips on those. But now we'll cover the 2 most important pieces of the puzzle for you to run injury-free. And if you do these 2 things right, a lot of these running injuries can be avoided. The first thing out of these 2 is sleep, food and general recovery, because of course what you do all of those other hours of the day that you're not out here running and training will play a huge role in how your body is able to handle the stress that your training puts on your body. And one study looked at athletes who slept on average less than 8 hours per night and found that they were 1.7 times more likely to have an injury compared with athletes who slept more than 8 hours every single night. So in order to stay injury free, of course it is important to make as healthy and good life choices and prioritizing sleep, recovery and eating enough good and healthy food. And this is something I for sure have felt myself with the last years of having small kids and sleeping way too little. I found myself to be way more prone to running injuries and have had to adapt my training to my new life when I have a hard time getting that well-needed sleep. But although what we just talked about is super important, the number 1 thing you should focus on to run injury-free is load management. Simply meaning not doing too much too soon. And this is so much easier said than done. Although most of us runners know the importance of having a sensible progression, it's the main mistake all of us do, and some like me have done it way too many times. So to do this right, you have to prioritize some time and effort to plan out your training. And you can't just focus on how much or how long you run each week, because how hard those runs are also weigh in on your overall load and the toll your muscles, bones and tendons have to deal with. That's why I use this training planner sheet that I have made myself, where I put in how many minutes you plan to stay in each of the different intensity zones during your training sessions, and then you get like color codes and numbers that indicate your overall load and can guide you in a good way when you plan out your training. If you want to check this out, it's available on my Patreon on a link in the description. But although it is great to have a plan, there are no black and white answers on how much you can progress your training, since all of us are different and have different backgrounds. So it's a part of your journey as a runner to get to know your own body and how much it can tolerate when it comes to progression in your training. So that's also what makes it fun, that there is a lot of thinking you need to do to optimize things. And if you found this video helpful in any way, I would appreciate it a lot if you hit that thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. Train smart, have fun, and I will see you in the next video.